trees in the backwoods night. Red lights cutting through the pine in flight. Bigfoot stomping with his youngling beard. Whispers of tales that ain't too clear. UFOs buzzing solo through the haze. Howling banshees set the forest ablaze. Jersey devil howls drink rays to the sky. Drunken cryptids party until the morning's night. Yeah. It's showtime, running wild in the moonlight. Stars burn down, watch the freaks all take flight.
To good times.
Raise your glasses to the mysteries divine. It's showtime, let the...
And welcome back to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. I'm your host, Matthew Orton, and I got to give a quick shout out to blademedia.com. Thanks, Dylan, for all the hard work you've done. You guys hear me talk about him all the time. Go check out his website. Come on, blademedia.com, BLAYED media.com. And we were going through some of the numbers, and I want to give a shout out to our UK listeners. What's going on over there to the UK? Cheers, cheerio. I am probably insulting you, and if I am, I completely apologize, but that's not what I'm trying to do. But to our UK listeners, you guys, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. So there's a shout out to the UK. I have only been to the UK once. We landed there. We were on our way to another location, and I was in the military, and right outside the window, there was a pub. And all I wanted to do was go get a pint in a pub. So I could say that I had a pint in England, and unfortunately, the government wasn't real fond of letting us do that. However, but a real quick shout out to the team as well. Thank you guys very much. Big news on the horizon, you guys. We are doing the Cryptid Fest, June 6th, 2026 in North Little Rock, 600 North Broadway Street at Old Bart's. He is sponsoring it. He's helping us out with it, you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got some great VIP speakers coming in. Tickets are available for sale. Check out the Eventbrite on the Facebook page, and we have the Facebook page for it. We have the Facebook page for Drunken Cryptids, so check those out. And then, so that's where it's at. Great speakers, you guys. You're going to have a good time, I promise. So it's our first ever event. We're looking forward to seeing everybody there. But let's get into, a long-awaited part 2 is we've got Sloane coming back all the way from Alabama. And big fan of the show. Thanks for listening, Sloane. I appreciate it, man. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, Matthew. How you been doing?
Not too bad. I mean, it's been a good week. Had the kiddos. Everybody's all happy right now. So it's Friday night. I'm sitting in the tavern. The weather finally warmed up, finally. And now it's about to dropping in on us.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get cold down here, too.
Yeah, we were talking off air, and I'll take your 40 versus our 14 that we're going to get. Because I agree with you. Yeah, we don't get 14 degrees here often, especially in December. So this cold front pushing in, by the time this episode airs, it's going to be January, so it'll be cold anyways. But, I mean, hey. Well, y'all going to have you got big plans for the holidays? Y'all set up for it already, or what?
Oh, yeah, we're going to have a few of the kids over, grandkids, Got a big swing set I built for the grandkids outside, so they're all excited about that. So we're looking forward to some family time, a little time off work.
I agree. I'm doing the same thing. I am actually taking, I'm doing nothing the week of Christmas at all. I'm going to have the kiddos, and my daughter has been wanting a loft bed, and it's being delivered this Monday. So in podcast time travel, by the time this episode airs, it'll already be built, So I'm putting together a loft bed, getting her room set up. That's what she wants. So, that's what she's getting from me for Christmas.
That sounds awesome.
She's excited. No, she knows it's coming. So she was looking. Yeah, she was looking earlier before I came out here, and she was like, "Okay, so we're gonna put it here." I'm like, "Yeah," and she goes, "All right, so we can put this." I said, "Yep, exactly." I said, "I'll get it put together. So when I see you in a week, boom, we'll have it."
Well, that sounds awesome.
Well, let's jump into it. So All right, we last left off. We were discussing the animal, the dog mutilations that you had down there.
Yes, sir.
And has anything? So before I jump into my news, has anything new happened since then with that, or on your end, or no?
No, I put a few trail cams out back behind where we stay at, which is in the same little area where the within a mile or two where the dog mutilations happen. I've got a few strange little lights and things like that on some of them, but nothing else. I hadn't heard of anything else happening as far as anything getting killed or anything like that.
Okay. I was curious about that because, so I did, pass it on to my homicide buddy, and he looked at him. He's retired now, and he said from the pictures he wasn't able to discern, but it does look like an animal attack. He's not able to tell you what kind of animal it is without being, up close and personal. And as he stated as well, that's not what he does. He would just say an animal attack. You'd have to go to like a veterinarian or somebody like that, or an actual doctor to get into to determine whether or not, what the size of the animal was.
Oh, yeah.
Now, my opinion is, well, I'm not going to lie. I think it was a dog man.
I'm not sure what it was. I've never seen anything like it before. And it was just curious. It was a strange. I hope I don't ever get to see anything like that again, but it was just strange. And like I said, with all my studying into the dogman phenomena and things like that, it just kind of piqued my curiosity a little bit about what was going on. But who knows?
Yeah,
maybe time will tell.
It's got me as well curious about it, and we've talked about it. Me and Tommy talked about it. Me and Chris talked about it, and my cop buddy, and it's. From the way you described the events that took place and how the animals were found, that sounds like an attack. That's an animal attack.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. Like I said, it was gruesome. But what was strange was the lack of blood. And like I said, that was secondhand information. My brother's the one that took the pictures and sent them to me, and he was like, And he's an outdoor, always has been an outdoors guy, and he said, I don't know what did this. It wasn't enough. It just wasn't a lot of blood. He said you thought there would be tons of blood everywhere, and he said there just wasn't much blood at all. And it was strange, but like I said, I don't know what it was. It's just an interesting thing. If the pictures weren't so bad, it would be nice to be able to share them and have people put their thoughts in on them, but they're pretty graphic. So
yeah, well, in looking at the pictures too, one, they are graphic, and two, I don't think just by looking at the pictures we'd be able to. I think we'd have to have hands on the animal, or the animals to see exactly the extent of the damage, because pictures can only tell some of the story; they can't tell all of the story.
No, absolutely.
And,
right.
be honest with you, like, you or me, neither one of us are forensic photographers, so we wouldn't know what to take pictures of.
That's true as well.
Because people go, well, did you take pictures? I'm like, yeah. Then they go, did you take any more than this? I go, I'm not a forensic photographer. This is what I got, dude. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yep, exactly.
It's just crazy. Well, let's jump into it. So our part 2, so we covered Cryptid on the last conversation, and you have a potential demonic encounter.
No, it was demonic.
Okay, all right.
Not potential.
I love the confidence now. I love that.
Yeah.
Hey, a spade's a spade, right?
Right. I'm gonna call it what it is.
Exactly. So I was trying to go for there. So, let's jump right into it then.
All right. Well, we'll go right into it. Well, I married my first wife in 1998, and by 1999 in February we had our first son, and after we had him, she decided, well, we need to buy a house, and so we started looking, and I wasn't making much money, and she was part time in it. So we didn't have a lot of money, but we had we found a little house that wasn't it wasn't too expensive, and she's had her heart set on it, so we put in an offer on it, and I can't remember exactly. I know it was in 2000. My son, he wasn't even walking yet. Uh, he was over a year old, but he was kind of a little late walking, and we had thought we had everything situated where we could leave where we lived at and just move into the new house. But as with the best laid plans, things don't always work out as we thought they would. And we ended up running into a few problems while going through the process of buying that home. And so we had to move out and move in. She wanted to move in with her mother and father for until we could get everything situated with a new house. So we did, and we had moved up there, and it took longer than we thought. We was up there several weeks, and I was going back and forth to work, and I'll say this: her, and I don't want to talk disparagingly about her mother and father. They're both gone now. I had a decent relationship with them for the most part, but her dad was ex-military, and he could be kind of an a-hole. And of course, I can be too. So it doesn't have anything to do with that. But he he could be kind of an a-hole, and so as we were up there for a while, I came in from work one evening, and I was working at a supermarket. I was a meat cutter for several years in a supermarket in town. And where this was outside, way outside of town, and it was in a very rural area. Which all of this is rural, but it was in an exceptionally rural area up there. And her and her mother had gotten into a argument, and it progressed on, and they kept arguing and arguing, and then her dad got involved, and it really blew up. And I'm not. That's not my home. I'm trying to just keep the peace and just be. I don't want to get too involved. I'm staying in somebody else's house. But she finally had enough of it, and she told me. She said, "Hey, get you some clothes. We're going down to my grandma's house." Her grandmother lived probably about 3 miles away from where they lived at, and so, and be honest with you, I didn't mind. I preferred her grandmother over her mother and father. I really thought a lot of her, and she thought a lot of me. And so we get us a bag, pack it up, and me, her, and the kid go down to her grandmother's house. And her grandfather was still living at that time, but he had Parkinson's disease. Uh, he still got around and all a little bit, but she had to watch him. His mind wandered, and he'd get confused, and he might fall and all that stuff. And but we went down, and she told hey, we want to spend the night with you. And of course, she was like, "That's fine. Y'all come on in." And the way the house was set up, when you walked under a carport, and you walked into the door, the side door. You entered the house from the side door, and you walked into the living room, and the dining room was on the right, and the living room was all like one big open area, and the kitchen was adjacent to the dining area, with a bar across it right there. But there was a hallway right there that ran long ways of the house. That once you left the living room, you walked down a long hallway to the end of the house, and it went to the right. And she put us up in the front bedroom, which was down that hallway. And we go in, and it's like you walk in the hallway. There's a bathroom to the left. Then you walk just a little ways, and there's the doorway that entered into the bedroom we were staying in. And there was another bedroom at the end of the hallway, and there was a Jack and Jill bathroom that ran between those two bedrooms. And it wasn't a big bedroom. It was but after we sat around and talked and visited for a while, went to bed. I had to go to work the next morning. I think I had to be in about 8, maybe 9 o'clock in the morning. I know I didn't have to do opening that morning. And so, we go to bed, and she's got, I think she had my son in the bassinet over on her side of the bed, and I was on the far wall. I was on the side of the bed that was to the exterior wall. It was away from the hallway. And, she had grown up. Her grandmother pretty much raised her on and off her. She was really close to her grandmother, and so she spent a lot of time there. So it wasn't a big deal for her to be spending the night there. But I don't know how you are, but myself, if I'm not at home, it's hard for me to sleep. And if I'm not, it's a new place, I'm not comfortable. It's hard for me to sleep. And
I'm the same way.
yeah,
When I had a few jobs where I traveled a lot, and it was a nightmare. And to where it's hard for me to go to somebody's house and stay the night. To where I just no, I'll come home, if
yeah,
that makes sense.
exactly. Yeah,
And to where I'll have friends say, "Hey, why don't you come over and hang out?" And I will, and they'll be like, you can drink more and you can just crash here. And I'm like, nope, I'm going home, thanks.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm 100% with you.
Yeah. And it had taken me. We'd been at their mother and father's house for I don't know how many weeks. I can't remember now, but I mean it's been 25 years ago. But I had just gotten to where I could sleep there. Kind of halfway sleep there, and here we are in a whole different place, a different bed, different room. And but she goes on off to sleep, and she falls asleep, and as he walked, when you walked into the bedroom door, the bed was to the left. The headboard was to the wall facing the living room, which is at the front of the house. And there was a window on the exterior wall. And like I said, on the front wall, when you first walked into the bedroom, to your right was the bathroom door. It went to the Jack and Jill bathroom, or they called it a powder room. And when you had the door that went to the hallway. And I'm laying there, and I don't know what time it is, and I'm like, man, I got to get some sleep. I got to get up. I got to go work tomorrow. I couldn't go to sleep. She was sound asleep. Kid was asleep, and I'm I'm laying in the bed. So, and in that house, and I don't know. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. They had Silatex tiles in the ceiling, an old styrofoam looking tile that runs in, and so I start counting tiles. I said, I'm going to count tiles till I go to sleep. And I go to counting, and I start right above my head, which is up against the wall. And I go down all the way by the exterior wall until I get to the front wall, and I come back and then back and forth. And I keep doing that, and I go over and over, and I'm just not going to sleep. But as time goes on, I just keep going from the exterior wall side to the side where facing the hallway. And I don't know how many times I had done that when finally I'm coming along, and it's done gone on pretty late at night. Everybody's sound asleep, and as I get close to the door that goes into the hallway, and right there, I notice something standing in the hallway. Well, it's right in the doorway, in the door frame. And the first thing that hit my mind was, is that her granddad? Because he had Parkinson's, and he might get up and wander a little bit. And but I mean, it wasn't completely dark in the room. You could see from my outside light coming through the window a little bit. And I said, I looked, and I said, that's not him. And I'm gonna preface all what's fixing to happen with this. At this point in time in my life, and like, as in the last one I told you, I'm a Christian. But at this point in time, I was heavy in church. We went to church every Sunday. We had our kid in church. We were there. I read my Bible daily. I felt like I had a pretty good relationship with God at that time in my life. And but when I see this thing, it's just a shape. You can kind of make a head and shoulders out. I don't see a neck or anything like that. And that's what kind of caught me when I had to take a double take at it, because I thought it might have been her granddad had got out and wandered out and was looking in the room. But it was just a black mass shape. And it, like I said, you could make the shoulders out. You could make the head out. I didn't see anything else. And, and all this happened in a matter of seconds, but it seemed like it took forever. And it did something strange. it's almost like it melted down to the floor. And I mean, it went straight down. It didn't, I mean, it just melted down, and I could see it, and it flowed in kind of like smoke or fog, and it came into the room. Now, I'm wide awake. I don't, I'm not asleep. I'm not anywhere near going to sleep. And it just kind of raised up at the foot of the bed, right in front of where I was laying at. And it was just tall all the way up to the ceiling. And, I'm sure it just had like 8-foot ceilings in the house and all. And, it was it, it was a feeling of dread, and it was a heaviness in the air when it did this. And at this point, it showed its eyes. Its eyes were red, and they were kind of like the color of a brake light. There was no pupil. There was nothing, but it was just like it was a heaviness in the air. And at this point, I'm like, this ain't good. And I go to sit up in the bed, and at that point, it lays down on top of me. And it's when it laid down, and when I say laid down, it's like it folded down, just like you had something on a hinge. It just laid completely down right on top of me and pushed me back down into the bed. And it's like eyeball to eyeball to me. And I'm 22, 23 years old at this time, and like I said before, I'm pushing 6'2", and it just I'm young. I probably weigh about 220 pounds. I'm not fat, and I'm fat now, but I wasn't fat at that point, and I wasn't a wimp, and it will not let me move, and it's trying to look me in the eyes. And like I said, there's no pupil or anything. It's just red, complete redness. And it's a wicked, you can tell it's wicked. It's bad. And the first thing that comes to my mind is I got to rebuke this thing in the name of Jesus, And so when I go to speak, and I'm going to say in the name of Jesus, I can't speak. It won't allow me to speak. It's like my tongue and my mouth is paralyzed. And at this point, my mouth is dry. It's tangible what's going on. My tongue is stuck to the top of my mouth, the roof of my mouth. I can't do anything, and it's trying to look me in the eyes. And I turn my head to the exterior wall, and I can see the window. I can see the light coming through the window, and it's pressing on me. And I keep trying to say, in the name of Jesus, in the name of Jesus, and I cannot speak a word. And I never saw arms. I never felt fingertips or hands. It was just a heaviness over me, and it was pressing that. It was just it. I couldn't move. The only thing I could move was my neck, and I was trying not to look it in the eyes, and it just kept on. And like I said, I know this couldn't have happened for very long, but it felt like an eternity. And it began to press me, and it gets to the point where I can't breathe. I'm getting to where I can't breathe. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to breathe. And I'm looking away, and I'm thinking this thing's going to kill me. And I'm praying in my mind, Jesus, but I cannot speak. I can't utter the words. It's like it has me by the mouth and the tongue, and I can't move. And in that moment, I was powerless. I didn't have, I had no ability to protect myself or anything else to defend myself against this thing. I was just like clay in its hands. It could do putty. It could do anything it wanted to with me. And at this point, I began to really get terrified from what's going on, and it's pressing me. And it's pressing me so hard into that bed that you can start to hear the box springs and all, the springs to start to squeak, and the tension on them is pushing me down. And the farther it pushes me down, the harder it gets to breathe. And I'm starting to struggle at this point, and I'm starting to panic. And it's trying to look me in the eyes. I mean, I can see it out the corner because my eyes, I'm laying on my back. My head's turned, tilted to the left, looking away, and I can't do anything. And at that point, I turned. I was able to move my head, and I saw my ex-wife. She had her back turned to me, and she was sound asleep. She didn't know what's going on, and I can see her. And I said to myself, I got to wake her up. I've got to wake her up. And I start to struggle really hard at that point. I mean, I'm giving it everything I got, and I'm able to just twitch just a little bit. And the only thing I can get out, I'm trying to yell, and the only thing I can get out is like a, like that, like that, just a gasp of just a grunt. And I see her start to move. And when she starts to move and wake up, it was just like somebody sucked that thing out of there with a vacuum cleaner. It was poof, it was gone. It went right back out that door. It just sucked out of there. It disappeared. And she's like, "What are you yelling about? What's wrong with you? You all right?" And I said, and I still don't, I guess I didn't want to scare her. I told her, she said, "What is it?" And I said, "It's nothing, go back to sleep." And she rolled around and she went back to sleep. And of course, I didn't sleep that night. I laid in that bed, and I laid there for, till, if I dozed off, I don't remember it. I mean, it was a miserable night. I got on up early that morning, and we were in there, and she was fixing our son some breakfast and all that, and we were sitting there. I was getting ready to go to work, and she's talking to me, and she says, "You had a heck of a dream last night with all that noise you were making." And at that point, I told her, and I was honest with her. I said it wasn't a dream, and she was like, "Well, what was it?" So I told her exactly what happened. And she's like, "Well, I'm glad you didn't tell me, because we'd have had to get up and left last night. We'd had to leave." Well, I went on to work, and like I said, at that point in time, I worked in a meat market, and there was a guy that worked there, as a middle-aged black guy. His name was Donald, and he was a Christian man. He was a good man. And I was talking to him about it. I was like, "Man, I had this experience last night." And I said, "It wasn't a dream." And we talked about it there, and he said, "Oh, the witch was riding you." And I said, "The witch was riding me," and I had never heard anything like that. And he said, "Yeah," he said, "That's what the old folks called it." He said, "The witch was riding you." He said, "You had a spirit. It came to you." And he said, "They'll do that." He said, "That's commonly what they'll do." And we talked about it a little bit, and I had asked a few other people about it, and one or two had said they had mentioned about it, and they had heard a little few things, something like that. But a lot of people were telling me, "You were dreaming," but I was not asleep. I had never went to sleep. I wasn't even tired. I mean, I just couldn't sleep. And you know that went on for that went on. I kind of put it out of my mind. I did think about it from time to time. Why would God allow that to happen to me? And as time went on, I think he done that because he wanted me to know that the supernatural is real. But I didn't have any more interactions with this thing for several years. And then I began to having dreams. And this was, and I'm not saying this had anything to do with me and my ex-wife's marriage falling apart or anything like that. We had some issues and stuff, but not long before she decided, it was her decision for the divorce and all that. I was the type person that, when I got married, it was forever. That's the way I felt about it, but it wasn't the way she felt about it. So I didn't have much choice in it. But she, I started having these dreams. And now these are dreams, but the same thing shows up. And it's a few months before me and her split. And I start having this recurring nightmare. And we're in our house where we're at, and I come out into the hallway and I see it. And at that point in time, it comes to me, you got to take authority over this thing. So I say in the name of Jesus, you get out of my house. And it goes into a room. And I go into the room and I'm looking for it and it shows itself again. And at this point, it frightens me. It's big. It blows up. And I go to say in the name of Jesus, you get out of my house, but I can't speak anymore. It's got me by the tongue again. And at that point, I start backing up and it starts advancing on me. And I'm steadily trying to, rebuke it. And it would not let me rebuke it. And until I wake myself up, I actually wake myself up with the same grunts and all that. And like I said, a few months, it wasn't long after that we split, we parted ways. And on and off after that, I would have it, but it comes and goes, and I still have that today to this day. And I mean, I'll go into I'll have my wife will wake me up, and I've told her, I said, wake me up if you hear me doing that. You wake me up, and she will. She'll say, you're yelling in your sleep. She'll shake me and wake me up, because my wife, my wife now, she's an insomniac. She can't sleep, and she's a very light sleeper when she does. So any noise or any movement, it'll I'll wake her up, and she'll wake me up. But it doesn't press me anymore. But in the dreams, it will harass me, and it'll come after me, and I'll try to rebuke it, but it will not let me speak. And not too long ago, it was actually since our first episode. Like I said, I got some buddies at work that uh, listen to podcasts and things like that. And one of them, he's a really he's a Christian guy, and he's into a lot of the spiritual and supernatural things. And he came to. I was at work one morning about couple months ago, month or so ago back, and he comes over and he goes telling me, he said, "Man, I got to tell you." He said, I got a niece that's having some issues, and says she's been having. She called me and said, I've been talking to her about a lot of the spiritual stuff that we listen to, about the spiritual side. And, most modern day churches, they don't, and I'm not talking about trying to talk bad about them, but they've kind of de-supernatural the Bible. They don't talk about a lot of that stuff. And then it makes people that are Christians, when they have an incident where they run into something like this, they don't have anybody to talk to about it. And it just kind of isolates you. But he talks with his niece a lot about it, and different things. And she goes to telling him about a dream she had. And I won't say she worked at a school. She works at a school, but she had a dream she was at a school. And I don't know if something was going on. She saw this entity and said it was white. It was dressed in white, and it then it kind of transformed into something hideous in white. And but there was I don't know if it was a school shooting or whatever going on. So there's people, and she couldn't help them, but she said she was just running through the school going, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And she's going toward this thing, and it runs from her, and it goes in a room, and then it circles back around, and it comes to her, and it comes at her, much like what happens in my dream. But the difference is this thing came right to her, and mine never speaks to me. But this thing spoke to her, and it pointed in her face and said, "You can't do anything because you're afraid." And she said she was afraid. And I talked to him about my encounter and what I have going on with mine. It's a lot of similarities, but you know, it's still here. It still comes around. And I can sense it sometimes when it's near me. You get down. You feel really down, and you feel like you catch a glimpse of something out of the corner of your eye. Um, and and it has. I look at it kind of like it's an oppression. It's I'm not a possessed individual. And a lot of people don't believe that Christians can be possessed, and because you have the Holy Spirit that resides in your heart. But I have a thought on that. In the temple in ancient Israel, uh, you had the temple, you had all kind of outer courts, and the Holy of Holies is where God resided. And only the priests could go in there at certain times and all that. Nothing else could enter that. But anybody could come into the outer court. So if our body is a temple and he resides in our heart, that doesn't necessarily mean that he can't enter into the outer courts. And it's a scary proposition on that, but and it's difficult to live with. And some people don't believe in this stuff, and that's fine. But we're all going to find out one day it's real, and I know it's real because I've looked it eye to eye, and it's a creepy thing. It's a scary thing to have to deal with, and it it's a I'm willing to bet you're gonna have people that'll come out and tell you that they've had similar experiences. Uh, I'm willing to bet that because I think it's a lot more common than what we would like to admit, if you know what I mean.
I do. And I agree 100% with you on that one. I do believe that we are it does state that we are in a constant state of spiritual warfare. And you're right also how the churches, and it's not every church, and and I'm definitely not attacking any church out there at all whatsoever. So please, like you were saying, please, folks. But I have a smart audience. You guys know I'm not attacking any churches, but the church seems to have strayed away from dealing with the supernatural aspects of the Bible, the of demon possession, to where it's if you bring up that you're in a warfare with demons, automatically, well, are you ADHD?
Oh
Or
yeah.
you know what I mean? Are you? I mean, what's your problem here? You know what I mean? It's where it's turned into a psychological thing, to where science has taken over a lot of the supernatural when it comes to the Bible, and they refuse to acknowledge it. Exorcisms now, apparently there's almost an act of Congress through the Roman Catholic Church to be able to perform an exorcism.
No, yeah.
And then it has to have a medical doctor's approval for it and stuff. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much involved when it comes to the church, excuse me. And I've shared this story before with everybody, and I'll share it again. A couple of years ago, I had questions about, some issue, Genesis 6 in the Old Testament. So I scheduled an appointment with a big church, here in town, with the minister. I knew him, and we had an appointment set, and we came in, and he had just bought a Jeep. So we, spent, the first, about 20 minutes or so talking about Jeeps and, everything like that. And I said, okay, let's get to the heart of the matter. And I started bringing up Genesis 6, and he looked at me and he goes, Matthew, I'm sorry, I just stick with the New Testament. And I looked at him and I said, man, I'm sorry I wasted your time. And we went back to the conversation about Jeeps.
Yeah.
Super nice guy. Now I have another, I do have a friend of mine, And when I shared the story with him, and I brought up Genesis 6, he looked right at me and he goes, "You're talking about the Nephilim and the giants?" And I was like, "Yes." And he goes, "Yeah, what do you want to know?" And we had a whole hour and a half conversation, you know? So it's not every church.
No, it's not. But I think most mainstream, churches that we have nowadays, they rationalize everything, and everything's out. It's not being literal, but it is. I mean, we look into, even in the New Testament, Jesus, what was he doing? He was casting out demons,
Yep.
and you have to ask, well, where did the demon come from? And that used to blow my mind. I'm like, well, where did a demon come from? Why would God create a demon? And because it's really kind of there's not a lot of information on that in the Bible per se. There's a few little tidbits and all, but
Well,
if you go in,
if you go to the Old Testament, though, it does talk about where they come from, and it does deal with the war that took place in heaven, with the fall of Lucifer, and with the Nephilim, the Great Flood. There's a lot of things to where, because God did state to where these things that were created are not allowed in heaven.
no, they're not. And my oldest son, he's very well. Both of my boys are actually. They're big in church. I mean, they really are. My oldest son, he actually preaches some at a Pentecostal church, but I've talked to him a few times about it. And of course, he believes in demons and things like that. But if you mention anything, about, say, the book of Enoch, and I'm not saying it should be in the Bible, but Jude quoted it and Peter quoted it, so they read it. So they understand. So they understand there's some truth in there. And he'll just, boy, you mention Enoch, and he'll just dismiss everything you say. And so I'm not going to argue with him about it, or anybody else for that matter. But in Enoch, it tells you that where demons come from is they're the disembodied spirits of Nephilim.
Yep.
And they couldn't go to the heaven, and they couldn't go to hell.
Exactly.
And they were left to roam the earth, and that's what they were there for. And that's where they come from. So in all regards, they're really not a creation of God. They're a corruption of his creation. And but we live in a world now where a lot of people just don't see that it's supernatural. And I was one time that. I mean, I really was. I just didn't understand it. And if I didn't understand it, I didn't believe in it. And
well, there's a lot of people there's a lot of people out there, and as you mentioned earlier too, though, other people are having similar encounters that you're having. I feel as though my whole life I have been in a spiritual warfare with the paranormal encounters that I've had, which some have been pretty scary. I've never seen red eyes. I will say that much. I mean, because I want to get, I want to jump into your stuff here in a second. Go back and I get some questions about it. But I do fully believe that we are in a constant state of spiritual warfare, and people don't acknowledge it because as we've gotten away from it.
Well, yeah.
But it's okay. So what's funny is this, and I tell everybody too, how can you believe in God? How can you believe in Jesus? How can you believe in, the Holy Spirit and angels and heaven and everything, but dismiss demons and Satan and hell?
Yeah, because he speaks on it. It's not something made up. If you believe Jesus is who he says he is, then you have to believe in that stuff, because he spoke more on hell and demons than he did heaven and the other
Exactly.
things.
Because we are in a constant warfare.
We are the subject of a war, and these things. The more, and you can over spiritualize things. That's to me, that can be just as bad as not having enough spiritual insight on things. So, we have to walk a fine line on that kind of stuff. But we are in a spiritual war. I mean, Paul talked about it, we battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and all that. And and I believe it. And I know it to be true. I mean, everybody else believe what they want to, but it is a fact. And I've had the opportunity to actually see this thing. And after when I was going through my divorce, man, I was down and out. And I mean, I was at rock bottom. I was in bad shape. And I did something I never thought I would do. I contacted a counselor, and it was a Christian counselor at the Bethlehem Baptist Association over here. And so I went to him a few times, and I was talking to him about what was going on. And now I won't go into details about what was going on why I got divorced, but I talked to him about my encounter with this thing, because at this point, I mean, I could feel it. I could feel it, and I kept having these nightmares and things. And he told me, he said, "Well, I'm gonna be honest with you." He said, "This isn't the first time I've heard of this red-eyed monster." He said, "That's something that happens. I've heard it several times." And we talked a little bit about it, but I didn't go in great detail on the different things. But he was a Christian. I mean, he was a psychologist, but he was a Christian psychologist. And but he said that's absolutely real. He said I've heard it way more than one time about the red-eyed this thing. And I call it like a smoke. A smoke. It was like it was smoke. It was smoke or a fog. That's what the consistency of it is. You could see it kind of swirling, and it was black. Man, it was black, and it was blacker than the darkness around it. And and like I said, I've had people tell me, "Oh, you were dreaming. You had sleep paralysis." I was not asleep. Now all the other encounters I've had, and I haven't had a dream probably in 2 months now, but it comes and goes. It comes in waves. I'll start having them, and it'll happen, and it'll happen, and then it'll go away, and then it'll come back, and but those are dreams. Now they're lucid dreams. They're very real, and to me. But now the first encounter I had, it was physical. It was not. And I wake up now, and I'll say this: I bite my fingernails. It's a disgusting habit. I bite my fingernails. I don't have fingernails, and I'll wake up, and my wife will say, "How'd you scratch yourself?" And I'll have scratches down my stomach. I'll have scratches on my back, and I mean, she'll testify to it. She said, "How are you scratching yourself? What happened to you there? Did that happen at work?" And I'm like, "No, it wasn't there last night. I took a shower. And there's times when I scratch myself at work, but now when you take a shower, it tells itself.
Right.
It stings. It burns like fire, and I know it's there. No, I wake up in the morning, and sometimes I'll have scratches. Now, like I said, I could be scratching myself, but I promise you, I can send you a picture of my hand. I don't have fingernails. And I've bit my nails since I was a child, and I've tried to stop. I can't, but I don't have nails. I mean, I can't scratch you. And so I have that. That's the only what I would consider a physical sign of anything like that. And usually it's in threes. That's odd to me. It'll be like 3 lines, just down my stomach, or 3 lines across my back. Well, I see you got 3 whelps back here, and I don't know what that is. I mean, it could be, like I said, it could be me. Maybe while she's sleeping, she has fingernails. Maybe she rolls over and she scratches me and doesn't know she does it while she's asleep. I don't know, but I find that odd that I have that sometimes. I know like I said, I know I can't scratch myself. I mean, I just can't do it. I bite. It's insane. I don't even realize I'm biting my fingernails. I've already chewed it down to the quick. And but you know, uh, it's a constant thing. Like I said, I know I can sense it. Like I can walk off through this. I'm not a fearful person, and I'm not scared of the dark. I walk right across this yard, out through the woods out there at night. And the only thing I'd be scared of is maybe stepping on a rattlesnake in a hot summertime. But I'm not scared of anything like that. That doesn't bother me. But there's times when I can walk into a room in my house and I got to turn the light on. I got to turn the light on. I can feel it. And not I don't know what the light's supposed to do, but it lets me see. I want to see it before it gets me, And
It's a
but
comfort thing.
it is, and but it's a real thing, and like I said, I guarantee you're gonna have some of your audience will reach out to you and say, "I've had that," or "I know someone that's had something like that happen to them." And it's traumatizing in a lot of ways, like, I mean, it messes with my sleep. I can't sleep when it's going on, my sleep's no good when I start having that. And it happens. Like I had a run here a few months ago, man. It was constant. It was like it was every night or two, and I would have it, and my wife would wake me up because start with, I wouldn't say what it was, and I said I don't know what it was, and then she's like, what is what's going on? And I told her, I said, well, I had this encounter years ago, and I had these dreams, and now I guess it's about the encounter, or maybe it's coming to me in my dreams. That's what it feels like. And I said it shows up, and I said, and she said, well, do you want me to wake you up? And I said, yeah, please wake me up because it's terrifying. And like I said, I'm not a small guy. And I'm not afraid of a whole lot. And I'm not saying I'm a bad guy or anything like that, because I'm not. But I've never been a fearful person. And but when it shows up, I can feel the fear. And and I don't see it far as like, I don't walk through the house and oh, there it is. But you have a sense of it. And every now and then and I have, my thing is, if you catch a glimpse of something like that, it wants you to see it. It's wanting that reaction, that fear reaction from you. I don't know if they feed off fear. I don't know what they do, but or they get off on, I know they get off on harassing God's children. That's what they want. They want to hurt His children because it hurts Him, and that's their mentality on things. But it like I said, and it doesn't matter. We've lived in several homes since me and my wife have been together, and it's not one home that I've been in that hasn't had I haven't had a dream and it show up, and it's just it's not a good thing, but it's something I have to live with. Paul he had his oppression, he had his thorn in the flesh. He asked God to remove it, but God told him, "My grace is sufficient." And so I kind of am looking at it like that now, that God's grace is sufficient. I can live with what I'm going through. Why, I don't know, but maybe I've opened the door, to it with something I've done in the past. I often wondered where it came from. I used to want to say, and it could have. I always want to say it followed us from her mother and father's house. Like I said, and I'm not speaking ill of them. I hope and pray both of them's in heaven right now. Um, but they had a kind of a tumultuous relationship at times. He was a bully to her in a lot of ways, and she had her ways about her too. But they kept, it was always some like turmoil, some fussing and fighting and stuff going on all the time. Uh, and I often thought to myself, and for years that it followed us from there. And her grandmother, and she was a good woman, and her grandfather was a good man. But I don't know, it could have been there. And I've often, as time went on, and I've studied things and listened to different things on things, I wonder, it could have been with me my whole life. it could have followed me down through the bloodline. I've got some things in my family's past that's not too good, and so I often wonder about, could that be what has, did it follow me through the bloodline? Has it followed? It's been with my family for years, and there's several things I could talk to you. I won't talk about on air. That's in the family that it's not good. I've had several relatives that I know for a fact were demonized, and you know, and I've often wondered, as times went on, I've started to wonder, has it always been with me, with my family? Well, or did it come and attach itself from hers? And I'm not sure, I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I know it's not, it doesn't mean me any good. I know that.
No, no. I mean, it also sounds, I mean, from what you're describing, possibly a generational curse.
Well, yeah, and yeah, that's, you hit the nail on the head. And I've heard people mention that before, and I didn't think much of it for a generation. No, and I never would have paired it with what happened to me. But as like I said, I started listening to podcasts and things, and I listened to yours, and I listened to several others, and some of them are a little religious based, and but they're not into, they're more in the fringe area of things that in the Bible that just not regularly taught in church. And generational curses has come up, and I'm like, is that where this thing came from? And like I said, I'm not going to go into details on some of the things. I don't know everything that happened in the past, but you know, my family has, we've had some things back a couple generations that's not good, and at least on my dad's side, I know, and it was not good, and I've often wondered that, what happened. Did that come from there? And it could be, and I'm not a perfect person. I've had my sins. Don't get me wrong. And I think when we mess up in sin, we open doors. And I've often said this, and I'll say this: I've never done drugs. A lot of people can't say that. Now I've drank plenty of alcohol, and I'm not saying that's good. That's great either. I've drank more than my share of alcohol, but drugs I've never have done. And but I've got family members that were bad on drugs, and I've watched them, and I've seen things, and there's a lot of spiritual things with that. And I think sometimes when we take stuff like that, it opens doors in our minds, and something comes in, and it demands to be fed, and it takes control, and this is no disrespect to anybody. This is my personal beliefs, and people can disagree with me, and I may be completely wrong. A lot of people treat drugs as a disease, addiction as a disease, and I can see that. But if I have cancer, that don't make me go down the road down here and kill my mama and take money from her. But drugs will, and they have. And it may be me oversimplifying it, but to me, when you open those doors, you allow things in, and they come in and they take up residence. And every time you give them something, they take a little more territory in you until they consume you. And and I really believe it's, like we said, we're in spiritual warfare. And I think that's a lot of what we have going on. And that could be from anything. It's not just drugs. I overeat. I'm a fat boy now, and and that's not good. That's a bad thing and all. But they are, that's a sin, and but that's my own personal beliefs on it. And just for me and my own encounter with this thing and my own experiences with it, and I guess you could call the relationship with it. I don't keep a relationship. I don't fellowship with it, but it comes around. I know it's here. when it comes around, and it goes and comes. And it may be here the whole time. I just can't sense it, but when it starts making its presence known, I know it's around me. And
Well, let me ask you a question about that right
yes,
there.
sir.
So,
hmm
uh, when it does come around, have you started to look and see maybe patterns in your life that might invite this thing in?
Well,
You know what I'm talking about? Like,
oh, I know exactly
whether
what you're
eating
talking
habit
about.
or something, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm not going to say that, and I'm not going to say it's not. Like I said, I'm a Christian, but I'm a far from perfect. There's a lot of things in my life I know I need to straighten out. But
Everybody's far from perfect, and
yeah,
everybody should know
absolutely.
that. I'm far from
Yeah.
perfect.
Oh yeah. Well, we all are. We're all fallen. And if we weren't fallen, we wouldn't need Jesus, would we?
Right.
And but I can't pinpoint anything in particular. And like I said, coming down through the family and all, we have a temper. My family has we're known for bad tempers, and I have one myself. I can control it for the most part. Um, most of the time, people at work might disagree with me. They hear me, kind of going off. They think it's funny sometimes, but it's I have my vices, my with my temper. That's a big thing, and even though I may not explode outward all the time, on the inside it's boiling at times. I just have to try to pack it down. And I don't know if that has something to do with it. Maybe sometimes, but to me, it seems like when it's around, it gets worse. That'll get worse with me. And and a lot of people tell you I'm the nicest guy you ever met. Some of them, oh, he's so nice. Well, yeah, I am, but I can be not nice. And there's I can't pinpoint any one thing. And this I have a problem with my language. I try not to do it, but I have a potty mouth, and I've prayed over that thing, and I've taught, and I've tried, and it's just like I can't control my tongue sometimes, and I think that probably attributes to it to bringing it, to me. Opening doors, I think that probably has to do with some things,
Well, I
and
wouldn't say I wouldn't say your language. I mean, that's you know, I can get very vulgar, and what's helped me with it is being doing this. To be honest with you, running the show.
yeah,
What's funny though is we'll be driving and somebody will do something in front of me, and I guess that's one of my big pet peeves is, you know, other drivers who don't know how to
no,
drive.
I have road rage myself,
And my
so
little
I know
boy will be
exactly.
like, he'll be in the back seat and he'll be going, language. I'm like, sorry, buddy. Language. Sorry, buddy. And he laughs
Yeah,
about it. He's like, language. I'm like, I'm sorry. And for some reason right now, my dog um, does not want to go outside and wants to go into my bathroom and go. And so, and yeah, so like the other day, it only does it when the kids are here. He's like, he's afraid to leave the kids for some reason.
right, yeah,
And so the other day I was like, okay, he's grounded and he's in his kennel. He's on my list. And my little boy goes, language. I said, I was being blunt. And he just
yeah.
started laughing. So I
Um,
wouldn't say that was your language, but it sounds to me more of a generational curse that maybe has been passed down somehow or
yeah,
another. And maybe it's just a random thing. And maybe you start to get angry because it does start to come around.
it could be. Like I said, and I don't know. I can't be positive on any of that. But you know, like I said, I can all fair one day we'll talk, and I can tell you a few things that's went on in that I know of, and there's a lot of stuff I'm sure I don't know of in the family. There was, and my dad, he talked a lot about things that he went through growing up, and at times, and he it was, it wasn't an easy life, and and he was a hard man as a father on us. But now, compared to what he went through, we were treated very well, and I tried to be better. You hear my boys talk. Oh, you was rough, Daddy. You was this, son. Y'all don't know what rough was. No, I wasn't as rough as what y'all make me out to be. I just wanted y'all to grow up to be good young men. And I think I succeeded in that. Both of my boys are good, and my daughter as well. I love, she does well.
It sounds
And
like it from what you've told me. Yeah.
yeah, they do pretty well. And I'm proud of all of them, and my stepkids. I'm proud of all my two kids, stepkids as well. But they're my kids too, But but it 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 could very well be something generational. And I would have never. I've heard people mention bloodline curses, blood curses, and all that stuff, and I've read a few things in the Bible about it and all, but I never gave it much thought. But like I said, over the past probably 2 or 3 years, as I've listened to some of this stuff and had it brought more and explained in ways I can more understand, I'm not a I'm not a scholar, so you have to kind of dumb things down for me sometimes. But I could very well see it being a generational thing, and
So
it comes down.
because and now I did bring it up, so I'm going to play since we're talking about this devil's advocate here.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
part of the issue that I have with also a generational curse is my religious belief. Is the fact that I do look at everything from a Christian perspective, and I know, God is a great God. I know He's a good God, and I don't believe that He is actually going to curse you or I for stuff that happened to our family or what our family did 100, 150 years ago.
I don't. I
So
don't
that's
think.
where I wonder whether or not we're taking this generational curse out and maybe using that as kind of a scapegoat. Now, I know I brought it up earlier, so I mean,
Yeah.
since I did
Well,
mention it,
I
but
don't think he necessarily curses you and I, but I do think it affects things that we do, and during in our environments and stuff that we grow up in, and genetics play into this as well. Um, I think we're more prone to go that way, and it's still going to fall on us. We have a choice to make in a lot of things that we do, and like I said, I talked to one of my aunts not here. Well, my only aunt that's on my dad's side just left not too long ago, and she talked about some things with her dad and my dad's dad, and she's the only one left. She can tell me a few things about what went, in their life that went on, and like I said, I won't discuss that stuff on here, but he was something else, and he had some ways about him, but he had a if you go back into his childhood, it was not he had it rough himself. So it has come down, through life, and I had a good childhood. I'm not trying to say I didn't. My dad was a strict disciplinarian, and but he loved us, and I knew he loved us, and he made sure we knew he loved us, and he didn't beat us. Now he'd wear you out, you know what I'm saying? He didn't beat on us. He'd make you think he was going to do it, but I'm not trying to say that. I don't want to put that out. I mean, I don't want to put any bad light on my dad. But he was not he was a rough guy at times, and he was coarse, and he didn't play around. When he said something, he meant it, but he always had our best interest at heart with it. But like I said, as you go back further down the line, it was there was some stuff went on, and there was some people did some things that's not good, and that comes, and it actually could, when we people do certain things, it can cause iniquity, and iniquity runs down the bloodline. Why it runs like that, I don't know. That God will have to explain that to me 100% when I get to heaven with Him. But
yeah, I get a lot of questions as well. But I think when we get to heaven, I don't think we have that question. I think we just gain that knowledge.
I think you're probably right with that. We'll have that, but and it'll all make sense when we get there. You know, and here's the thing: people say you don't even know. If I could explain God with my little 8 pound brain, he wouldn't be much of a God to worship, and you know.
True.
And that's the way I look at it. And but I don't know why he has allowed this thing. And I mean, he has to allow it, or I had to give it a gateway. It had to have a gateway to me at some point in time. And you know, we can give them legal rights to us by doing things. And I can't think of anything that I've done that's been that would have brought it to me. I think I've, and you know, we all do our things, but I've lived a pretty moral life overall, or I feel like I have, and I don't know why it would come to me, and but it does, and I'm not afraid of it. Not far as me walking around here, but there is fear there because and like my friend's niece who had her dream where she had run into, that kind of opened my eyes a little bit about it. And I haven't had a dream since then, but I said maybe I do fear it more than I want to put on that I do. And that's why it continues to come back because I fear. You know, God tells us all the time, fear not, fear not, fear not. And kind of sometimes when we fear, I think, you know, we put ourselves in jeopardy of encountering, you know, having these things come on to us because we can't combat them in fear. And but you know, a lot of people, you know, like I said, people say that was a dream. It was not a dream. It was a physical thing, and it was demonic, and it's still demonic, and it's I still, like I said, I have it comes to me in dreams now, but it's not. It was not a dream. The first one was definitely not a dream. And, you know, I just carry on with my life and deal with it when it comes to me. But it's not a I don't wish it on anybody. It's not a pleasant thing. It's an oppression. You know, I battled depression and things like that with it. And you know, it's I get down. I get down sometimes, and I have to pull myself back up out of that pit sometimes with it. But it's uh, it's not good, and it doesn't mean me or you or anybody else any good. And and but that was my experience with it, and that is my continuing experience with it.
That's crazy. I do think there's something real to the dreams. Um, you know, dreams are fascinating. I have either odd, strange, normal, weird, crazy dreams. You know, Barney walking around. You know, blah 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 blah. And then
Oh
I have
yeah,
the really intense ones that it feels like there's something to the dream that I need to know. You know, as I try and explain some of them to folks, is where it's me, but it's not me in the dream, and it's an environment that I know, but I don't know. If that makes
right.
sense, places and things I've never seen before. And what I think is funny too is they'll say, you encountered people in your dream that you don't know. It's a face that you've met, and I'm like, well, how do you know that?
Yeah,
How exactly do you know that? So when
yeah,
when people say, "Oh yeah, yeah, you can't make up a face or anything in your dream," I'm like, I don't think that's what it is, and I think dreams are. I don't know, and I'll be the first one to admit I don't know what dreams are, but I do know that they're intense.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
and people are fascinated with them because you can write a book to interpret dreams and make it a ton of money off of it and be
yeah.
the furthest from the truth. Be like, well, I dreamt I saw water. Oh, that means that you are flowing in the right direction, or your life's about to flow. And what I mean, I'm like, no, you know what I mean.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's crazy how we do all that.
Well, you know, I can have a dream, and I have dreams. And now, normally, I don't remember my dreams. You know, I may dream, and I may wake up and remember them for just a second, and then they're gone. I don't remember them anymore. But when I have a regular dream, like, if I watch something on TV about tornadoes or something, and then I dream, I'm in a tornado, well, I know where that came from. You know what I mean? I know where that came from. Well, I must have dreamed that because I watched that TV show or this or that. Well, I don't. This here's the same thing every time. It may be in a different house, a different room, different things like that, but it's the same smoke figure with the red eyes. And it don't always show me its eyes. Sometimes it just, you know, kind of flows into a room and then back out, and it doesn't, but sometimes it shows me those eyes. And it doesn't have pupil, doesn't have any whites. They're just red eyes. And it's unnerving. Like I said, when I get up, I don't feel like I've had any rest from that. And you can tell you feel drained. And I don't know, it's an aggravating thing. You go to sleep, you want to get some rest, you're tired or whatever, and you go to sleep, everything's good, and all of a sudden, there you are. I'm in the house. I'm in my bedroom, and I know it's in the house. I know it's in the house. So I go out, and I'm looking for it, and I'm going to rebuke it, and I can't say a thing. Sometimes I can say it the first time in Jesus' name, and when I go to tell it to get out of my house, it'll go, ugh. And then I'll go back to it, and I can't say anything at that point. And that's what scares me, is if I could just say it, because I know there's power in the name of Jesus. If I could just speak his name, I can get this thing out of here, and it will not let me do it. And and that's the scary thing to me, is it has that kind of power that it can influence, my ability to speak truth at it. And that's kind of the scariest thing to me. Shouldn't anything or anybody be able to stop me from speaking. You can put your hand over my mouth. You may not understand what I'm saying, but I'm saying it. But you can't say it. It will not let you say it. And that's kind of the scariest thing to me.
No,
That
I'm with
something
you.
can have that kind of power over you.
Yeah, that would scare me as well. Not be able to speak. I mean, and you're right. I mean, you put your hand over your mouth and you're still, yeah, it's there. But
Yeah. I mean, what can do that?
Sloane,
What
I don't
what does
know.
it take to be able to control that? And
I'm real
but
with
it's
evil. Pure and
yeah,
simple
it's
evil.
it's not good. And and I knew it when it came in that room that night. It was like immediate. When it was there, I'm like, what is that? And it melted. That's how I want to describe it, because it didn't stoop down. It didn't do that. It was standing straight up, and it just like it melted down to the floor. And it flowed in like a smoke or a fog. You could see it right above the foot of the bed as it came in, and it came right into there, and it rose right back straight up, just like it didn't stand up. It just rose up, like it came straight out of the floor, straight up at the end of the bed. And at that point, I saw the eyes, and I knew. I said, "This is not good. This is not good at all." And it came to my mind that you know, I said, "This is the devil. This is the devil." And I went to sit up, and it just, before I could even kind of half raise up, it was on top of me. And it it was like somebody laying stones on you, or just a heavy weight, like you almost had a piece of wood over you and somebody was stacking stones on it. and it just got heavier and heavier. Or somebody was cranking a vice down on you, and it was covering your whole body, and it was just pressing you, pressing you, pressing you down. And like I said, you could hear the bed mattress creaking and popping and all of that. And yeah, it was kind of traumatic, you know. It really was.
It sounds horrifying, to be honest with you.
It was. This is the most scared I've ever been in my life. I mean, the most scared I've ever been in my life. And it's just, you know, I don't think a grizzly bear would have scared me as bad as that thing did. As it was on me, and it hits some more of a. It's not just physical. It hits you deep inside, and it was an empty feeling. It was a heavy, oppressive feeling. It was a sense of dread when it was there. It was a pure evil, and it was an emptiness and a sorrowful feeling. I don't know how to exactly explain it. It was nothing like I've ever felt before or since then. It was, it was like hell, and it was bad, and I don't I don't wish it on anybody, and I hope and pray to God I'll never have to have that first experience again. I don't like the dreams, but I can deal with them a lot better than I could that initial encounter. And but it's something I'll never forget. And I didn't, I haven't shared it with a ton of people until now. There's a few people I have, over the past year or two, I've probably come out with it more and more, telling people about it, because, you run it, people don't believe in some of this stuff. And they believe in this part, like you said earlier, they believe in God and they believe in this, and I'm like you. You believe that God became man, came to the earth, was crucified, and went to hell and raised himself from the dead. But you don't believe that demons are real. You don't believe that this other stuff, and he spoke of it, is real. Oh, it's absolutely real. And I think as we get closer to the end times, and I think we're getting closer and closer, we're going to see a lot more of this stuff manifesting. And they know their time is short, and they're going to attack. And that's what they're doing. And I believe that with all my heart. I mean, I do.
I,
And
I agree with you 100%. But the thing is, too, is that, with the war coming and everything, the best part is we know how it ends.
oh, absolutely. I know they're already defeated. They know how it ends.
Yep.
They already know how it ends. Even when the Bible says when Satan cast down to the earth, he knows his time is short.
Yep.
And so he knows how it ends, and we all do. Now, there's a lot of people don't believe that. There's a lot of people don't believe like me and you do, Matthew. They're on the other side. They've been fooled, and they believe they can pull it off. They can win, but they're not. And I pray that everybody sees the truth. But when you have something like this, and I can only imagine if something like that could actually get inside of you and possess you and take control of you, that has to be terrible, because I know, like I said, I was putty in this thing's hands, and I couldn't do anything with it, physically or spiritually or anything else. Like I said, it wouldn't even let me speak. It was like it paralyzed my tongue, everything. And they're powerful. Now, who we serve is way more powerful. But if I was in my own strength, and like many of us try to walk in our own strength, we have not a chance. We have not a chance for these things. And it like I said, it was a terrifying thing, and it it's something I don't know why I had it happen to me, and in a way, I'm kind of glad it did. And that sounds crazy because you can't tell me and convince me it's not real because I've experienced it. And there's a lot of people that, and I honestly feel like sometimes that's why God let it happen to me the way it did, was because at some point in time, he knew that I was gonna be searching for this stuff, and he wanted me to know that it was real and that he's real, and he's already got it under control. But
I agree
it's
with
it,
you, and that's
it
probably a good spot for us to bring us in for a landing.
that sounds good.
Yeah, we're going on almost an hour and a half.
Oh
Um,
man,
Man, Sloane, I want to thank you so very much for coming on and sharing that with us. With me, I mean, this was wow, very. That's terrifying. I mean, I could only imagine. I've never had that. I've never had that type of encounter before. So I'm not even going to pretend to be like, oh, well, this is what I would do because
yeah,
I've never been there. The only thing I will bring up though is I want to go back to like so you're waking up with scratches and there are three scratches, and
yes,
I want to help dispel a myth real quick. So,
mhm,
if everybody listening, including Sloan, if you'll take your hand out, right,
mhm,
and you go from your thumb, you're going to have those three fingers right there.
right,
And you take your hand, you put it down. Those three fingers, not counting the pinky or the thumb, are always in contact. You have to come all the way down to get the pinky in. So if
yeah,
anybody thinks going to scratch, so I think that whenever they say that the three scratches are demonic,
yeah,
it's a shot at the Trinity. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with no because they don't know, and only because I'm using my fingers here looking at it as I put it
yeah,
down. If I'm gonna scratch, those are the three fingers, so it's going to be three
yeah.
scratches.
Yeah, well, I can see that, and and I would agree. The issue I have is like I don't have
No,
fingernails.
no, that's what I'm saying. You don't have fingernails, so you're getting
No,
scratched. I'm not. You know what I mean?
yeah, I'm like some of these are pretty good scratches, and I mean they're not like down to the white meat or anything like that, but they can draw blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
And
gonna hurt.
yeah, I mean they are, and like I said, I get up and my wife are like, "What happened to you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. What did you do that at work?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I said, "I don't think so. I didn't see them last night. When I came in and got in the shower, and it certainly didn't burn. Because I know I've scratched myself at work and didn't really know it. And boy, when that water hits it, it'll let you know it's there.
That's true.
But I like I said, I'm not 100% sure where the scratches come from. And I'm gonna say this on my back, I can't reach back there, man. I'm not that limber. I can't reach back there. I'm not that limber where some of them are. So I don't know where they come from, and I know for a fact those aren't me. But like I said, it's nothing like major, but it's. She notices it. She'll tell you. She'll say, well, what happened to you? Did you scratch yourself at work? And I'm like, no, not that I know of. Oh, but I don't know what that is. I
I
can't tell you what that is, but I can tell you the fact that what I encountered was demonic. In 2000, that was demonic. And what comes to me in my dreams is the same creature,
I
and
agree.
it's not good.
I
And
believe I believe that, yeah, it's demonic. And
yeah,
I would not be able to give you any advice whatsoever on to get rid of it other than to keep doing what you're doing and keep praying, brother. I mean, that's all I can tell you to do.
yep, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm
So,
gonna rely on Him. I'm gonna rely on the Lord. And like I said, Paul, he didn't remove Paul's thorn in the flesh, and some people want to say that was a physical ailment. It was not a physical ailment. It was spiritual, and he just told him, "My grace is sufficient," and that's what Paul said. He had to accept that and move on, and so that's what I'm doing. And if he ever decides he wants to remove this thing from my and I hope if it's generational, I hope it stops with me. I hope my kids don't have to, and grandkids don't have to deal with it. And but who knows? You know, who knows where it came from? Well, I know it didn't come from God. It's just from hell, you know. But I don't know why it chose me, I guess you would say. But and why it keeps coming back. But you know, I'll deal with it as it comes to me.
Well, well, again, Sloan, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I greatly appreciate it. Um, man, you guys, what a terrifying, horrifying encounter. Um, I, yeah, I just that paralyzation and not being able to speak, and yeah, I'm definitely gonna roll out sleep paralysis. I mean, I think that we come up with a lot of medical jargon, and I hate using that term, but I really do think that, you know, the spiritual warfare that we're in, that we do use, you know, we fall back on medical jargon, on what, you know, other people are telling us what's going on, and it just seems as though that, you know, they're just trying to get more pills or whatnot, chemicals into our system. But on that note, you guys, thank you again for tuning in and listening to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. Remember, if you've had an encounter and you want to talk about it, email me, drunkencryptids@gmail.com. Keep liking and sharing everything out there, guys. I see it. I appreciate it. Yeah, don't forget the Cryptid Fest coming up June 6th, 2026. Tickets are available for the VIP, and we are still looking for vendors. So if you're interested in being a vendor for it, go ahead, email me, drunkencryptids@gmail.com, or shoot me a message. So until next time, this is where the myths are real and the beer is frosty. Y'all stay safe.